Going on, everybody? This is Brian Mazik, aka Unique Mazik, the hardest working man in sports and gaming. I prove that every day. I prove that every day. I prove it. You know what? I would testify, but they told me if you testify, don't sing, and if you sing, don't testify. So I ain't gonna do. I'm not gonna get into it. But I prove it every day. What's going on, Nelson?
Yo, man, how you doing, man? Same show, new channel. We here on the
Yeah.
new channel. People been
Yes.
supportive,
Yes. Yes.
subscribing. Keep subscribing. We appreciate that, and we're gonna keep delivering the goods. We have a lot to talk about today,
We
so let's
do.
get on to it, man. What's on your
Yeah.
mind? What you ranting
Well,
about?
before I get into that, like you said, I do want to ask them, the people for a couple favors. All right. Make sure that you follow us on Twitter at Me Bro Show. Make sure you do that. Also, the Ask Us Bro questions, keep those coming. Don't worry about the volume. Sometimes we might have to like weed one out of the show and maybe we'll just answer it live or something like that. But keep those questions coming. Hashtag Ask Us Bro and at Me Bro Show, or you can even do at at Unique Mazik or at Nelson Blake too on Twitter, so to make sure that we see it. Also, like Nelson said, don't forget to subscribe, like the video, and also share the video. If you think that we just that awesome and that you just want to share it with somebody, I'm quite sure that person would appreciate you sharing us with them. So there you go. All right, let's go. I do have something to talk about. Now, you know what? I realized something. My mother used to always say when she was fed up with something, right? She would say,
You?
well, sometimes. But she would say, every time I look up. So everything,
Mhm.
you already knew that if she said every time I look up, whatever was coming after that was something she was tired of,
Mhm.
right? So oftentimes I feel that same way here.
Really?
Every time I look up, Nelson Blake II is trying to hold back an initiative that
I
I am
try to
behind.
help the people, man. I try to help the
It's
people.
every time I look up, and it's happening again. It's something. So the latest initiative that he has tried to hold back, that I am not going to allow him to hold back anymore, is there's okay. Well, let me explain how I'm including this, right? So yesterday, MLB the Show 19 dropped their first trailer, and it was fantastic. And I know that's an old school NBA slogan, but it was fantastic, right? I'm talking about this sucker was dripping with baseball nostalgia. The shots were awesome in terms of whoever directed and put together the trailer really needs some applause because they did a really good job. But what I'm talking about, because Nelson's not against the show, Nelson just didn't want me to mention my favorite current rapper, Tobe
Oh my goodness.
Nwigwe. He
Oh
didn't
my
want to
goodness.
talk about it. He didn't want to talk about it. So I'm gonna let y'all know Nelson's not the biggest hip hop fan. It's some songs he likes or whatever. It's not the biggest hip hop fan, right? I think like he likes the ukulele or something. But anyway, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. So Tobe Nwigwe is awesome, right? So if you are not up on him, Tobenwigwe, look him up on YouTube. Right now, to me, he's the best rapper in the world. But he does the soundtrack for the MLB The Show 19 trailer.
Nice.
Kills it. I'm talking about smokes it like a black and mild, baby. I'm talking about fire. Did you see what I just did when I said that? Did you see that? That lets you know something is hot. I should wait and use that for hot and cold. When I really like something, I should be like fire. Because that's how it was. And so I'm very excited about it. Y'all, I'm gonna put the link to the trailer in the description, but I had to share how fantastic, how fly this trailer was, and how my boy Tobe Nwigwe kills it, just kills it in the trailer. If you also want to see Tobe Nwigwe on like delivering some more just fire, look up his video when he appeared on Sway in the morning. I let my 12-year-old hear it yesterday, and he kept telling me, "Dad, he just said." I'm like, I know what I'm talking about. The dude is dope. So I don't know. You may have something because every time I look up, you got something you trying to hold me back on. You may have some sort of nasty reply for this, but
No, the trailer's hot. I thought the song during the trailer was really cool.
yes.
And I'm actually really glad that you found a sports related way to
Mm-hmm.
discuss one of your favorite guys. That's
Yeah.
all I ask for, is to maintain the
No.
integrity of the show. We talk about sports and video games, not what's on your mixtape. That's
Every time
that's
I
that's
look up, every time I look up.
I just creativity. That's all we ask. Just a little creativity on the show. I think it works. I like it. Again, trailer's hot. I'm definitely looking to get into the show this year,
You should. You
as
should.
a gateway to get back into baseball.
I
Since
think.
I am home to the greatest team in the history of
Well,
baseball and sports
I
in
got the
general.
hat on, so I can't really say nothing about it. But what I will say this, um, in my personal opinion, from the standpoint of nailing the sport in
Yeah.
terms of a simulation, I think the show does the best job of any sports video game franchise in terms of consistently capturing the essence of the sport that it simulates.
Hmm.
So there you go. I think it's
Yeah.
not more popular because baseball isn't more popular.
Correct.
You know?
Basketball is globally it's the second most popular sport.
Yes. Yeah.
And in America, it's second, but it's catching up on football real quick,
Yeah.
year after year. It's like really catching up. In fact, this week, and we can use this as a segue,
Hmm.
a lot of NBA trade discussions
Yes.
interrupted the Super Bowl
Yeah.
discussions, which is
It
crazy.
did.
I don't know if I've ever seen it to the degree that it was this year,
Yeah. Yeah.
that all football talk went out the window during Super Bowl week. That's incredible.
You know what though? I got a thing though. I got a thing that just came to me when you just said that, right? Can you imagine what it would be like if the NBA only played 1 day a week?
Oh yeah, it'd be crazy.
Oh my God, NBA Day would shut down the world.
Yeah.
Like it would shut down the world. Like it would be in, or just maybe
Well,
2 days.
going back to many of the brilliant ideas we've had on the show, if they had a mini tournament before the
Yes.
playoffs for
Mhm.
any reason,
Yes.
it would take because let's be honest, 82 games, like you said, ain't nobody asking for them extra 10, 15 games,
No.
right?
No.
Like I think 70 games is probably the perfect number.
Yes.
We've had 60 some odd game seasons that felt a little short. I
Little
feel
short.
like 70 was about perfect for an NBA season because
Yes.
the nature of the game. But you see, you were talking about for a play in for the playoffs. I'm thinking more of a play out in the sense of like I would like to see the bad teams,
Hmm.
if they're encouraged to play their best throughout the season, so we can get rid of tanking. We both agree tanking's a great idea in the current league. It's one of the fastest ways to get better. But I would like to get rid of tanking. And if the bad teams had a playoff against each other for the draft, oh, it'd be so tight. And
Yeah.
yeah, the worst team in the league would stay bad, but you know what? Somebody deserved to be the worst. That's just how it's just how
I've
it's gonna
heard
be.
I've heard that concept before, and I do think that it would be it's interesting. It's
Yeah.
interesting. I mean, I could see some fan bases just losing their complete minds for
Oh,
that
dude,
though.
if they did that on this very show, the Knicks and the Bulls,
Oh,
we'd be talking a grip.
yeah, it would be something. But you know what though? What you would probably see a different kind of tanking. You know what you would see? You'd see teams like the Knicks holding a healthy Porzingis out, which is pretty much what they're saying they already did.
He's not
Ho-
healthy.
well, yesterday, Adam Zagoria said that he has been medically cleared to play, but the Dallas Mavericks have elected to still not play him because they want to put him through a body transformation process that strengthens him for the long run.
Yeah,
So
he's not ready to play.
that I'm just saying this is what's being said. But what my point is, say for instance, you had a situation like that where you had a guy who was kind of healthy enough to play, but he
Hmm.
wasn't healthy enough to change the bottom line into a point where okay, now we can bring him back and he can drive us to the playoffs, so we can bring him back and he can push us into contention. But could we bring him back in a tournament of the losers
Right.
and
Well,
then
you might have
have
to
a
set some rules for that too.
Right.
And if
That
if
would
you
be
didn't play if you didn't play more than 10 games, you don't get to be in the tournament.
that would
You
be
might have to
pretty
do that.
amazing.
You
That
have to
might
do
be
that.
pretty dope. That would be
I agree. I
that
got a little
would,
NI because the NIT tournament tends to be exciting, even
yeah.
though it's not the NCAA tournament. Because tournaments are awesome.
Yes, tournaments are. I say that all the time in MMA too. Like the tournament thing just really, really works out. I think we just created a segment that wasn't actually supposed to be there.
But that's what we do, man. We
That's
we
what we
we
do.
help we help
We're
save the
the
people.
we're the segment creators is what we are. Um, it's it's just awesome. But all right, so you were talking about trades, and it's important that we talk about that because there's a lot going on right now. You guys are going to be watching this on Thursday, probably hours or so, either before the trade deadline happens or a couple hours afterwards. But in our current world, Tobias Harris got traded overnight, or agreed. The trade was agreed to for him to go along with Boban Marjanovic. I'm forgetting who else is in this trade. It got sent to the Philadelphia 76ers. It is a huge trade. The 76ers are sending help me out on I'm it's losing I'm focused on Tobias.
Oh, they're
And
sending Landry Shamet, which is the big name.
yes, I like him. I
You
like him.
see, and that's the controversial thing for me with the trade.
Hmm.
So they're sending Landry Shamet, a bunch of picks. They're out of the pick business. They don't need any young players
Yeah,
anymore.
they trusted the process enough.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. They're sending Wilson Chandler, who is not playing a whole lot right
Hmm.
now.
He's there for
Uh,
the money. I mean,
yeah, yeah,
he's there to add, to make it work financially.
right. And he's still a solid NBA player. When he's healthy, they might be able to get something out of him. He's played with Gallinari before. We'll see. He might wind up moving to another team. Who knows? But Landry Shamet is the big one.
Hmm.
That's very, very
And then
interesting.
all of the picks too.
And all of the picks, of course, the picks. But for me, what's interesting is they're a team that needs shooters, and they're sending a very young, very promising rookie shooter out to LA, which could, in the long run, we could be looking at this and saying Jerry West got him.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know. I mean,
But I mean, it's a
I
great
think
pickup
we
for
could say
Philly right now on the surface.
I think we might say that if Tobias doesn't resign. I think that I mean we might say that then, but they
Well,
gave
this
up.
leads me to my first question with you, right?
Yeah. Hmm.
So we've talked on this show about how Ben Simmons needs to add to his game. The free throw shooting needs to get better first and foremost, similar to Lonzo Ball, so that he can at least be aggressive. And he needs to get a semblance of a way to punish you from at least 17 feet, right?
Right.
But that aside, with Jimmy Butler, who we've covered a lot on this show, has a lot of responsibility to win on a major team, and
Yes.
Joel Embiid, who has had his defensive struggles this year in the pick and roll,
Yes.
getting Tobias Harris, I feel like on paper, if these players are what they think they should be in the championship conversation or bust from here on out. Now, acquiring a player this late, not this year. That's not fair. But going forward, if they were to re-sign, what else do they need? I mean, the lineup is crazy, really, when you look at it.
It really is. I would tend to agree with you there that they should be in that place. Now, like I said, they do have to re-sign Tobias Harris because he's a free agent.
And Jimmy.
Uh, yeah, and Jimmy, of course.
And
So
and real quick, we should note that the LA Clippers opened up a lot of cap space, which means that they could literally have traded Tobias Harris for Jimmy Butler. That is not entirely
right,
impossible, right? That
right,
they wind up with Jimmy and Kawhi Leonard or something.
yeah.
So yeah, and they have Shea Gilgeous-Alexander out there, and then that squad starts to look like a really, really good team already, depending on what happens with their draft picks.
Yeah.
So, they do have to re-sign both, and Jimmy has options now, depending on where
And
he goes.
also Kawhi Leonard then gets to be in that conversation for them or someone who they could acquire in the offseason.
Yeah.
They would need more people to probably to tempt him to come there at that point, but it would then become a part of it for sure. But I would agree with you. I do think that this move puts the 76ers in a place where they on paper look like they could be the best team in the East. Obviously, Milwaukee and Toronto are playing great basketball, and they have been throughout the season. They've been very consistent. But I mean, I do think this happens. And we talked about, and you mentioned Ben Simmons. And I think ultimately this trade gets to be as much about him as it is about anybody on this
Yeah.
team, right? Because I think the major question is, does the acquisition of Tobias Harris put more pressure on Ben Simmons to develop his game than anybody else, right? You know, Ben Simmons is the point guard. He is the guy who has the ball in his hands the majority of the time. He's the guy who is looked at as the distributor more than anyone on the team, right? He also seems to be the most, for lack of a better term, 76er for life type of a player on that team, right? To me, he seems to be that guy. This still feels like it's Ben Simmons' team to me, right?
Okay.
Even though he's not maybe the best, even though Embiid's the best player probably overall, it still feels like it's Ben Simmons' team. And maybe that's the point guard thing or whatever. And also Ben Simmons is probably the guy who still has the most to gain. I'm not to gain,
The
to
biggest
add,
upside? Yeah.
add to his
Yeah.
game to become who we think he can be. So when you put all of these pieces around him, the way the 76ers management has done at this point, now everybody's going to look even closer at Ben Simmons when he won't take a three. They're going to look even closer at him when he can't knock down a free throw, because you now have people around you who make you a serious contender. I just said the process is done. Trusting the
Yeah.
process is over. The
Well, in
process
terms
has
of
been
five-man
trusted.
lineups, there aren't too many teams. I mean, outside of Golden State, there's
Yeah.
not too many teams that is fielding Ben Simmons, JJ Redick, Jimmy Butler, Tobias Harris, and Joel Embiid. That is
Yeah.
a monster
You
lineup.
have
You can
three
five
guys.
out that lineup.
Yeah. You have three guys who are legitimate 3-point threats
Mm-hmm.
on the team. You can make the
I'd say
argument it's
four.
four.
Yes,
You can
four.
make the argument it's four. Joel Embiid's numbers are down from deep today, but I mean he's still drawing somebody to lift their hand and to bite if he pump fakes.
Correct.
You know,
Correct. And which is the key, right? Like you
that's
look,
the
that's the
key.
thing about five out. It's not about one guy goes in and everybody else shoot threes. It's the spacing creates so many opportunities for you to make so many different kinds of plays.
Absolutely. So because Ben Simmons can easily be the Giannis in their 5-out look.
Correct.
So I mean, Joel Embiid is not quite the shooter that Brook Lopez has become,
No,
but
Brooke is a monster. He got Hall of Fame limitless. But
yes,
the thing that I think it puts more pressure on Ben than to shoot is to hit the free throws.
yes,
Because the thing about Giannis is he's not scared to shoot. He
no,
shoots and he
he'll
makes
shoot
some
it.
shots,
Yeah, he'll shoot enough
right?
to keep you honest.
100%, right? And
Yeah,
he'll give you that feeling like I can't believe he hit that. And
yeah,
that's all you need. You don't need to turn into even LeBron James, who's become a guy that when he's hot, you have to play him for the three, and you
yes,
just hope he doesn't get hot. You don't even have to get that far. But
hmm
Giannis, more than anything, wants to dominate the paint.
yes,
And
yes,
he dominates the paint better than I've seen, particularly since I want to say young LeBron James.
yeah. I would agree.
Um,
I would agree.
but I would actually probably more liken it to Shaq, to be honest with you. He's like perimeter Shaq in a way that LeBron was perimeter Shaq in a way when he was super young. I think Giannis is in a way a worse version of that because LeBron was going to the basket super fast and dunking and finishing layups and getting free throws. Giannis is dunking on three people at a time sometimes. It's crazy.
And the other thing that makes him so amazing, and I don't want to turn this into a Giannis conversation, but the year he's having is easy for that to happen.
Yeah,
But um, Giannis, Giannis's post game is what to me even takes it to another level,
100%.
is because this guy has literally an elite level back to the basket post game. Elite level.
I
Like
agree.
it
I think it's
ends
very underrated.
it ends up with him facing up at times, but it can start off with the back down, and he's just so fast and so long.
He's fast, powerful. He has the length,
Yes.
giant hands to do whatever he
And
wants.
he's nasty,
Yeah,
which is another thing.
which
You know,
helps.
he has a nasty on court mentality. He
Yep.
wants to throttle you, and I think that is really honestly That's one of the biggest differences between him and Ben Simmons.
Which is why I'm glad we brought up Giannis in this conversation, because I think the pressure is on Ben to take a lot from Giannis now, because now you're in more of a situation that Giannis is in,
Mm-hmm.
and you need to do those things. Ben has a good post game.
Yeah.
He's solid back to the basket, and this is, buoyed by the fact that he's going to have the mismatch most of those times.
Yes.
You know what I mean?
He's gonna have the biggest mismatch night in, night out.
Correct, Mundo.
Yeah.
So, being in that situation with the mismatch, he can go to the basket, get stopped, look like he's going to bring it back out, and then post up, which we see Russell Westbrook does that a lot. And Giannis does that sometimes, where he'll go to the basket and the attempt isn't there. They'll collapse on him and then rotate back out, and he'll see that and then just post the guy up and turn around on him.
Yeah. Yeah.
And Ben has to acquire that aspect. And if Ben does acquire that aspect, I think this team is a championship contender, because
I think they definitely are.
yeah, Ben will ascend into perennial all-star, near MVP-ish kind of category. Maybe third tier, right? Like, so if top tier is Kevin Durant and Steph Curry, right below that is Paul George. I think Ben will get right below Paul, the way
No,
Paul is playing right now.
I think he could get above Paul, and I think he could get into that area of Durant and
I don't think
Steph
it's
and James
impossible, but I'm
Harden.
talking about the next step for him is to get to right
I
beneath
honestly
Paul
think he could
Pierce.
make a massive leap and leap that next tier. If if he
He got a lot of work to do,
if Ben Simmons can be a 75% free throw shooter
for sure.
and make 29 to 32% of his threes.
That's a long way off if you've seen that jumper though.
But who's seen his jumper? His
I've
jumper's on a
seen it.
milk carton.
I've seen it. It's horrible.
Oh
It's
my
like
God.
like when you go to 2K Jump Shot Creator, he put the release on one side and the stance on the other
He
side,
got Rachel Demeter shot base.
mixed with Andre Robertson's, and that's the
mixed with Kendrick
deep
Perkins
cut for the
release.
2K fans. It's hard. It starts over here, it goes over there, it decides to go halfway back over there. That's not gonna cut it. That's not gonna cut it.
Yeah, I don't know, man. I think he's trying to prevent. How in the world did the 76ers end up with two guys with jump shots that are just there? Something's wrong mentally with their jump shot. Like the way I
Well,
don't understand that.
Markelle Fultz had a situation that's
Yeah, that
still
hurt. He
kind of
got hurt. Yeah, he got hurt.
he got hurt, and there's also the rumors that he had the motorcycle accident,
Right. Yeah.
which
Yeah.
there's good reason to believe that that's true. So,
Yes.
and
Yes.
which is another side thing here. They got to do something with that boy. They
Yeah,
got
they
to
do.
figure out the Markelle Fultz situation, because at this point, if he was just a slightly better version of his best self in his
Hmm.
rookie year, they
Yeah.
can use that. They
Yeah.
can actually use an athletic backup point guard to Ben Simmons.
Just come in and get buckets, man.
Yeah.
But it is what it is. All right. So, but obviously, it's so crazy, right? Who would have ever thought that a Tobias Harris trade would ultimately knock Anthony Davis out of the primary NBA conversation? And that is pretty much what has happened. But we didn't forget Anthony. We
No.
didn't forget him. And so Books was saying, and we talked about this a little bit earlier in the week, there's a couple things to consider about this Anthony Davis potential trade to the Lakers. And one of the things that he mentioned, he talked about a lot of people don't realize how good Chris Bosh was with the
Mm-hmm.
Raptors from a numbers standpoint and where he was viewed overall in the power rankings or the list of big men in the league. When he was with the Raptors, you could have made the argument, the strong argument, that Chris Bosh was the best young big man in the league. You could have said that, and I don't think anyone who knew the game would have been able to say you're crazy, that there's no way. Like, if from the 05-06 season to the 08-09, I'm sorry, no, to the 09-2010 season, which is his last year with the Raptors, Chris Bosh never averaged less than 22 and a half points and 22.3 points, and he never grabbed fewer than 8.7 rebounds a game. He
It was
averaged
usually
over a
above
block.
that.
Yeah, and averaged over a block in all of those seasons. He never shot less than 49% from the field. I mean, and was never a worse free throw shooter than 78.5%.
And
Okay.
low turnovers for a big guy with the ball in his hands that much.
Absolutely. Turnover rate was never lower, was never higher than two. Well, he averaged 3 turnovers a game, but that was when he was 21 years old.
Yeah.
So that is what it is. So I bring Bosh up because one of the things that we talked about, or books mentioned, was people are saying, will LeBron turn Anthony Davis into Chris Bosh? Into
With
what Chris,
respect also to what happened with Kevin Love.
yes, into what Chris Bosh became and what even Kevin Love became, right? So I got the first response to that, right? My first response to that is, I sure hope so. And I say that to say, because what other people thought of Chris Bosh during the Miami Heat time was totally different than what I thought of Chris Bosh.
Yeah.
I never for once thought that Chris Bosh fell off, or that Chris Bosh wasn't still capable of putting up those same types of numbers that he did with the Raptors. Chris Bosh made a conscious and logical and smart sacrifice for what we all say we want from players.
Mm-hmm.
We all say we want players to be selfless and to, give up their selves for the greater good of the team. I mean, we saw in the 90s and the late 80s, we saw guys do that all the time. You guys don't, if you think that Isaiah Thomas couldn't have averaged 30 points a game if he wanted to, then you don't know basketball.
Right.
Isaiah Thomas
100%.
could have
He's a
scored
monster.
30 points a game.
He was a monster.
And people get mad and they think I'm crazy when I say this, but Isaiah Thomas could have put up better numbers than Allen Iverson if he had shot that much, because he was a better shooter than Allen Iverson. He was probably just as quick. Arms wasn't quite as long, but from a pure offensive standpoint and from a scoring standpoint, he could get buckets.
I don't
But
think he was as quick, but he was a much better ball handler, which gave him better change of direction, which, 6 in
it's
one hand, half dozen in the other.
a quicker Kyrie.
Yeah, for sure. Especially at that time.
So I feel like he could have done that, right? But he didn't do that because that wasn't what was best for Detroit winning.
He let everybody eat.
And that's important. And I think Chris Bosh was smart enough to say that and to do that. And he was a humongous reason why they went to 4 straight NBA finals.
Oh yeah, he became a better defensive player, which was a huge sacrifice. It's to, like, some people say that, like, they want to focus more on the defensive end. He actually did it.
Yes.
And the thing that I think that he doesn't get a lot of rewards for is that there were times where LeBron and Dwayne Wade, for one reason or another, weren't their best, and Chris Bosh those times would just step up and get 32 points for you
and remind you.
Yes, I'm still this good.
I'm still that dude.
Do this. All that having been said, I don't think that would happen to Anthony Davis, and here's why. Chris Bosh and Kevin Love were both ball in my hands kind of players. They both like to post up. Chris Bosh, more of a face up, post up guy, but still like to get the ball in his hands and make a play. Anthony Davis is much, much better than both of those guys at the Sean Marion game. Mm-hmm. He's going to get you 15 points just by being in the right place at the right time and being more athletic and more talented than everybody around him. And so from a numbers standpoint, I don't think his numbers would take the same visual hit, the obvious hit that Bosh's numbers took, particularly from the scoring standpoint. And even more so, I think the kind of game that LeBron complements very well is Anthony Davis's game. We discussed this last week a little bit. Anthony Davis is a super role player, right? Mm-hmm. What if you took an MVP and gave him a role player's game, or vice versa, a role player and gave him MVP level talent? That's Anthony Davis. He can do everything, but he doesn't have a go-to move. He's not Kobe Bryant. He doesn't go to his spots and kill you. He's not James Harden, right? He scores from anywhere and everywhere. And LeBron James would utilize that, I think, more so than he would with Chris Bosh, where Chris Bosh wasn't such a strong inside finisher that he could just throw oops to him all day. He wasn't such a strong cutter that he was always a danger as soon as you took your eyes off of him. That's Anthony Davis's game. He has a lot of that in his game. Chris Bosh became a great catch and shoot guy in Miami.
He did.
But they also had to give the ball to Dwayne Wade a lot too.
Mm-hmm.
And without a Dwayne Wade type player in LA, if they don't acquire a player like that needs a whole bunch of touches, I think Anthony Davis would look more like himself than either Kevin Love or Chris Bosh. I don't think you'd see a whole lot of him just standing around playing catch and shoot and, figuring it out on defense.
You want to know what Anthony Davis playing with LeBron looks like? Anthony Davis playing with LeBron looks like LeBron was given a hybrid between Clint Capella and Chris Bosh.
Yeah,
that's what it looks like. That's exactly now.
And Anderson Varejao. And I know some people would think that's crazy and take it as an insult, but no, I think it's fantastic when an MVP caliber player has Varejao type qualities.
Mm-hmm.
Prime Anderson Varejao in Cleveland was annoying. He was a problem, and he made a lot of plays. And I think Anthony Davis brings that to the table for LeBron. I think he gets in there.
Yeah, I mean, I think I really like the Capella hybrid with Chris Bosh because I think he does a little bit of both.
He does
a lot of what both of them do. Clint Capella is probably the best rim runner in the league right now. I think Anthony Davis could be that if he played on a team where he didn't have to score as much as he does from every other situation. But because of his range on his jump shot, then now he becomes a little like Bosh as well, because Bosh played that stretch 5 role with Miami because he gave the middle to Dwayne Wade and LeBron unless something was wrong and they needed to go to him on the block where he could prove he could still face up and be a force there. I think that Anthony Davis can be both of those things. Yeah. And I think that from a statistical standpoint, you start to look at him averaging 22 and 13, 22 and 14. I mean, it's like if you had a guy who's rim running like Capella, knocking down jump shots almost to the clip that Chris Bosh is knocking them down, and then also blocking shots in the middle like JaVale McGee and Tyson Chandler.
And defending the pick and roll, which is
and something that Clint Capella does great.
Yeah,
you know what I mean, and that Bosh could do as well. So I mean,
and running the pick and roll, which is I think the thing. I think LeBron and Davis in the pick and roll is probably the hardest to defend pick and roll that I can think of.
Because you have superior vision, superior size.
It's the size.
And the versatility. But I think it's not just the size, it's the size with all of those skills included.
100%. But the reason I say it's the size is because very, 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 very few teams. I think off the top of my head, Oklahoma City is probably the only team that I can think of. And Golden State are the only two teams I can think of that have two people that could defend that pick and roll, even in theory. Even in theory. Because you need to be able to guard the perimeter and guard at the rim. So you need size, athleticism, defensive effort, and defensive intelligence. Only Paul George and Jeremy Grant and Kevin Durant and Draymond Green would I even conceive of doing anything with that pick and roll. I think everybody else just gets eaten alive completely for free.
Yeah, I think Steven Adams' issue in that might be the foot speed.
No, I said Jeremy Grant.
I'm thinking Steven Adams, and Steven Adams being bigger than Jeremy Grant may be able to plug into
Jeremy Grant's super long and athletic, so I think he can help out just fine. I don't think
but the thing of it is that Jeremy Grant, they could still do that. I'm trying to think of naturally who would Jeremy Grant be guarding in that.
He'd be guarding AD.
He's going to be guarding AD. Yeah. So
and that's just in theory, like as a starting point. Everybody else, I'm looking at the rest of the league, and I'm like, the rest of y'all, good luck.
Struggles poor.
But we brought up Davis to LA like that's a done deal.
No, yeah.
And as of right now, roughly 24 hours before the trade deadline, it has not happened.
It has.
All indications are that it's not going to happen.
Right.
And the place that he, on paper, makes the most sense to go to is Boston in the offseason. Now, for everybody who doesn't know, They can't trade to Boston right now because of a rule in the NBA. You can't have two guys on a Kyrie Irving rookie type contract or whatever. I think they call it the Rose rule. So they can't trade Boston
The
now.
what rule? The what rule?
The Rose.
The Rose? Who?
Yeah.
Okay. Okay. I just was wondering.
Yeah, that's who it
Okay.
is. That's who it's about. So,
Okay.
um,
Okay.
Malik Rose. So,
Every time I look up, every time I look up.
so he can't go to Boston right now, even though Boston has the best deal on the table. Do you think of the whole Boston situation? Because there's a lot of things. Kyrie Irving looking like he's not going to be in Boston, even though they fake newsed him a little bit. They said because he had a quote where he said, "I don't owe anybody anything." He was talking about reporters and people in the media and people with opinions. He wasn't talking about the Boston Celtics. That was pretty clear in the context of the whole interview, in my opinion, anyway. But still, he didn't have the same tone he had earlier in the year when he was talking about, I'll resign if you have me, Boston, Boston, Boston all day. He doesn't look like a guy who wants to stay there, despite the fact that, to his credit, he's all in on the court. He's playing his best basketball of his career. What say you?
I think that I think it really kind of comes down to, I mean, honestly, I think, you know what I think was really important? I think it was the San Antonio Spurs taking a hard stance and the Toronto Raptors taking the risk of actually acquiring a guy who pretty much made it clear, I don't want to play for your team for a long time.
Mm-hmm.
I think that was very important in the NBA. Now, what'll really kind of tell us the real impact of that is, one, if whether or not the Toronto Raptors can win the NBA Finals, and then two, whether or not Kawhi re-signs with them, right?
Yeah, because winning the NBA Finals is, I don't want to say irrelevant, but that if that's your bar, you're an idiot, because the Golden State Warriors are on the other side. And
No,
I'm talking about for
no,
people involved.
no, I don't mean reaching. I'm talking about winning the championship.
That's what I'm saying. I don't think I'm saying, like Kawhi Leonard. If it's about basketball,
Mm-hmm.
the difference between reaching and winning the NBA Finals versus the Golden State Warriors in your first year with a new coach and a team you've never played for, I think that's ridiculous. If we didn't win, especially if Kevin Durant leaves, then the situation changes, because if you would, you're not talking about repeating it the way you
Mm-hmm.
would if he stays. But getting to the finals and coming out of the East with very impressive teams in the East now, especially post Philly trade, if he walked away from that, that would be a sign that when I say I'm not staying, I'm not staying.
Exactly. But see, I guess my thing is, for the Raptors organization and for their perception across the league, and even perception with fans, if they rented Kawhi Leonard for a year and he wins NBA Finals MVP and they win the championship, even if he decides to leave, I still think that you can make a strong argument that they did the right thing. Now, if they don't win and he leaves, then it's going to look like you did the wrong thing. So my point in bringing that up is, this is a pivotal time right now for teams taking the leap to say, I'm going to try to rent a guy. I'm going to give up tons of assets for a guy who has not committed to me and who I have every right to believe he's not going to commit to me. Because the first shoe that dropped with this is Paul George.
Yes.
Right? Because it already happened. We already thought Paul George was absolutely going to the Lakers. Everybody thought that. People thought that the Thunder was crazy to give up assets for a guy who, from Fresno, says he's always been a Lakers fan. Everything's pointed to that. They won with that.
And the Thunder look like they're going to be one piece away until they get a piece, or for the next 5 years. Like, this looks like nice job.
This looks like they did the right thing, right? So if this happens with Kawhi, I think that you will have a lot more teams. I think the Paul George thing is the reason why the Raptors did the trade for Kawhi, and I think you'll see it even more if things go right.
So let me ask you something. If Kyrie Irving leaves, would it be good for Boston to give up what they have for Anthony Davis, in your opinion?
Honestly, man, with Boston, I understand who Anthony Davis is, and I get it. I totally understand what the pull and what the draw is, right? I totally get it. But Boston is so good that I don't know. I don't know. I don't know that I rip apart some of what I already have to try to just take the next step. Like, because they're already so good. You
Yeah.
already have one of the best top two coaches in the league on your sidelines, right? Perhaps the thing that they need is simply for Kyrie to move on and for them to then have the opportunity to replace him with someone who ultimately is more of a needle mover. Because here's the thing, as good as Kyrie is, and as talented as he is, and as much as he can score, and some of the strides he's made as a playmaker, he has never proved to be singularly a needle mover.
Yeah, it's interesting with Kyrie in Boston, right? You bring up a great point because there's a lot of evidence to say that Boston is better without Kyrie Irving. Even
Yeah.
though that doesn't make sense because, like you said, he's playing his best basketball ever. He's
Yes.
become a better playmaker. And I always say with young point guards, and because he's missed so much time, I think he still has a little more room to grow than if he'd been healthy all this time and really calcified into the player that he is. I think he is still learning and adapting. He's still in that phase. He's still relatively young. Um, but that having been said, he still doesn't play defense. He gambles on steals, but he's not a guy who plays solid defense a lot of the time. And he's still not the best playmaker out there when
No,
it comes to point guards. Not even top 5, maybe
no.
not top 10.
I don't think he's top 10.
Yeah. So
Not
that's
in
not
that respect.
right, not in that respect. And the team does move the ball a lot better. The parts seem better when he doesn't play.
Hmm.
So the idea would be, well, if you got an Anthony Davis and blah, 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 but who do you give up? Does that really hurt you? My thing is this. If you pair Anthony Davis with Kyrie Irving, that I can see a lot of reasons someone would say that's a championship. We have those two guys and the Boston system and some complementary stuff. We just have too much firepower. And at the end of the day, in the East, you have to start thinking about how I'm going to beat Giannis Antetokounmpo.
Hmm.
You have to factor that into your life
Hmm.
because with Budenholzer out there, that's real. You know what I mean? They're on almost a 10-game win streak right now. They're like 9-1,
Yeah.
and it's not the first time they've been that way. They're holding at the first,
Yeah.
we're at the
I mean,
trade deadline.
even
They're first in league.
even even with Golden State on on this resurgence and charging, I give a lot of credit to Denver and to Milwaukee and to
Yeah,
Toronto for, I mean, with Denver and Milwaukee especially, for holding them off.
yeah.
You know,
And they've been playing well. That's the other thing is
yeah,
that people think it's just the Giannis show. No, that whole system makes everybody on that team a threat. They make the extra pass. They
yes, man.
defend. It's tough.
They,
So
I saw a play Eric Bledsoe made in transition a couple days ago,
mhm,
and it was really subtle, but you could totally see in the play that he made, and especially if you've watched Eric Bledsoe throughout his career, this dude is totally bought in to this concept. This team is totally bought into this concept. They know who they are. They know who Giannis is. They
yeah,
believe in Giannis. They believe in Budenholzer. They're dangerous.
they
They
are.
are
So
dangerous.
that having been said, in the Eastern Conference, I understand why anybody in the East would really, really want to acquire Anthony Davis because to beat Giannis, you need someone to balance out his output. And I don't think Kyrie's that guy. Kyrie's a great player, but he's a point guard. He's a little guy. And I think in a war between him and Giannis, I got my money on Giannis every single time. You give him Anthony Davis, now we're having a different discussion. That having been said, if Kyrie leaves, I don't think Anthony Davis is a great move for Boston. I think they just go with their plan that they had all along.
Mm-hmm.
They have draft picks, they have assets. I think Gordon Hayward is going to turn back into Gordon Hayward,
Yeah.
which will make him either a good player for Boston or an asset for somebody else. I don't think Boston is lost if they lose Kyrie and don't get Anthony Davis. I think what happens is they go back down to the 5th or the 6th seed for a year or two, and Ainge is going to find his way back to the top in a year or two, which is not a bad thing. Whereas if you get Anthony Davis and that's not the makeup of your team and you give up too much to get him, now you're stuck with that situation, particularly as the guy's injury prone. But
Yeah.
I don't think we would be doing this discussion justice if we didn't ask you, my esteemed co-host, where you
Mm-hmm.
thought Anthony Davis would wind up. And before you answer, Chicago is not a viable answer. Chicago is not a legitimate response to
Let
that
me take
question.
my mic stem off of that. Every time I look up, this is going on in here. It's crazy. No, as much as I would like that, and I think that it makes some sense, I don't practically think that's going to happen. I
We
really
know.
don't. I don't. I think that Anthony Davis winds up with the Lakers.
Mhm.
Either way it goes, whether it's tomorrow or whether it is in the off season. I think that's what ends up happening because I do not think that Danny Ainge will acquire someone who he doesn't think wants to be there because especially not at the expense of giving up Jason Tatum, which is what almost certainly they will have to do. So I think the Lakers are in a send it all place.
Right.
And it makes more sense because the Lakers' young core, while it does have some talent alone, it is not ready to contend, and it's much further away from contending than Boston's young core is. And they also have an older star that they're trying to pair Anthony Davis with,
Right.
which
Right.
means that it creates more of a sense of urgency.
That's my issue with Boston. Outside of Al Horford, who they will replace at some point, the rest of their core is on like a 7 to 12 year window
Hmm.
of competing. The Lakers need to compete within the next 4 years.
I think 2 to 3.
Well, that's what I'm saying. Like
Yeah,
within the next 4 years, right?
yeah,
Like after, like 4 years is kind of the limit of what will give LeBron James greatest athlete of all time, in my opinion. Most tremendous athlete I've personally ever seen, just
yeah.
in every category. So I'll give him an extra couple of years of being LeBron James over everybody. We'll give him some Tom Brady years, right?
Hmm. Yeah,
Where you get a little extra,
which we've never seen in basketball, but yeah,
right? But we,
he's that
okay.
dude.
If never seen, you get the never seen card, right?
Yep.
That's still 4 years though. After
Yeah.
5 years, he's going to be in a reduced capacity and everything around him will have to be stronger. Not saying he still won't be competing for championships, but he's not going to be going at the clip that he's going. He's not going to control as much of the offense as he's controlling.
And he'll be playing 55 to 60 games.
Maybe that could also be a possibility.
Yeah.
So they need to get going now. And so I think I'm with you, man. Boston, I don't think mortgaging your future for an oft injured star of Anthony Davis's type is worth it. If it was Kevin Durant, and there's an argument you could make that Anthony Davis is as good as Kevin Durant. I don't think so, but you could
I
make the
don't
argument.
I don't really think that
I don't
argument
think
would be
so.
fair.
But what the argument would be, you'd look at the numbers and you'd be like, well, his numbers are
Mhm.
astronomical.
Yeah.
But I'm not making that argument.
Yeah.
But you know, it's the type of player that Kevin Durant is, though.
Yeah, it's what I call a needle mover,
Yeah,
because some guys can put up stats and they're not a needle mover.
yeah,
Elton Brand used to put up 20 and 10s like 40 going north, but he wasn't a needle mover. You know what I'm saying, as a player, and that's really what you're looking at, that's also what I call a trap player.
hmm
A lot of times you see a trap player, you see a guy, and some people can make the argument that DeMarcus Cousins is a trap player. He's
yeah,
put up crazy numbers his whole career, but teams have never won.
yep.
So
And you know what it is more so to me, B, and I agree with your point here. It's not just that they've never won; it's that they didn't look better. And that's the thing for me. And there's one thing I'll forgive Kyrie Irving on. I do feel like Boston looks better in the last 2 minutes of the game with Kyrie Irving. They're
Hmm.
more dangerous with Kyrie in the last 2 minutes. It's just that they're so much cleaner in the
Hmm.
first 46 minutes. And
Yes.
with young players, that's important because the more touches those players get, the better they get. Which is really the issue for me with Kyrie Irving. He doesn't seem to like Jason Tatum. They don't seem to have a good relationship, and that's an alarm bell for me.
Yeah.
At their ages, particularly
Yeah.
because he could hurt Jason Tatum's development,
Yeah.
which you
Yeah.
need.
Which
And
or Jason Tatum is just going to simply go call Kobe.
well, they're both
Kobe.
friends with Kobe.
Yeah.
Kobe
Yeah.
like
But
both of them. They
yeah.
need to sit down on the table and figure that out.
Yeah.
But all that having been said, they don't look better, and I feel like, and I could be wrong about this, but this is just eye test. To me, when the Pelicans swept um, Portland, it felt like it was more because of Drew and Rondo than because of Anthony Davis.
Yeah. I mean, man, that playoff Rondo thing is real.
Oh yeah, Rondo's a very good NBA player right now. Like I'm tired of people poo-pooing Rondo. Like
Yeah.
yeah, the
I
Dallas thing was
stopped.
bad, but
I actually stopped like 2 years
yeah,
ago.
he's a
I
very good
stopped.
NBA player.
That dude is, yeah, yeah.
He's a basketball genius. He's still pretty quick. Excellent passer. He's gotten much better at shooting than people give him credit for. They act
Yes,
like he can't
they,
shoot.
they've been saying the same thing so long that they haven't stopped to pay attention to see that it's not the case anymore.
Correct. You
Yeah.
can't just sag off Rondo and let him kill you from three. At some point, he was shooting like 37% this season
No,
or
he's
whatever.
still shooting like that.
37%.
Yeah.
So no, that's all nonsense. Rondo's a very good player. I think the Lakers honestly would like to keep Rondo
I know they
uh,
would.
going forward. I think LeBron likes playing with
He
Rondo, and
loves playing with him. Yeah.
there's a special element with LeBron, Rondo, and JaVale McGee on the court. Then when I see the Lakers, I'm like, this could be something if y'all had better players, right?
Yeah.
Like if you just have Rondo, Klay Thompson, LeBron James, Kuzma, and JaVale McGee, I'm like, you know what?
Yeah, man.
You know what?
Yeah,
All
man.
right.
Yeah, because the thing about Rondo, and we'll move on after this. The thing about Rondo and having LeBron and Rondo, and why that would potentially give Golden State a problem, is because you need tempo controllers
Mm-hmm.
against Golden State.
Correct.
You need guys who can recognize a run and recognize a flood coming and are able to slow the ball down, take control, and dictate several possessions in a row. And that's one of the reasons why Houston was giving Golden State a problem last year, because you had Chris Paul before he got hurt and James Harden able
Mm-hmm.
to do that. It's also a reason why Oklahoma City gave them some issues the year before when they had Durant and Russell Westbrook, because they had two tempo controllers as
Mm-hmm.
well. So that's something that's really important. And so I do think that that would be pretty good. Now, we have talked a lot of basketball and I have enjoyed it all, but we do more. We do more. So now let's talk a little, and we're gonna come back to some basketball in some aspect. Well, actually, we'll do that for Ask Us Bro. So, in case you guys haven't noticed, we kind of separated Ask Us Bro. It's got its own little separate time slot, and everything comes out on Friday. I should have said that at the beginning. Friday at 10 a.m. You'll see the full Ask Us Bro show, and then we cut it up into the segments moving forward. So, just so y'all know. But let's talk about something that I guess it feels gaming like, but it's really not. But it's a film. It's we're going into hot and cold right now. So I gotta ask you quickly, what is your thought on Alita Battle Angel?
I love the anime.
Hmm.
I'm a big anime fan. Artist professionally, so that stuff was always a huge influence. First studio I worked at, a lot of anime influences. So I'm excited for that reason. The CGI looks a little odd, but I hear it's very good. I've heard some very, very good reviews, so I am actually going to go hot on this one.
I definitely say hot. I love superhero origin stories.
Yeah.
I always have. I used to like go and try to find out everybody's origin story. Like that was one of the biggest reasons why I fell in love like with the Marvel Encyclopedia, because
Yeah, that stuff's great.
I would just go and like I got that bad boy right there.
Awesome.
I would go and I would just read and just to understand where the characters came from and all of that. It's just awesome. And so seeing this, which is pretty much an origin story for her, Alita the Battle Angel, is cool. I also like the look of Mahershala Ali as the chief villain in the
Yeah,
film, which looks pretty cool. Um,
he's a
I
great
just
actor.
Yeah, he is. I just really dig her powers. You know what I'm
Hmm.
saying? Like the manifestation of her powers on screen look
Yeah,
really dope. And I like the way it's almost like it's teased to the point of she's not doing this the entire film, and she's kind of coming to grips with how powerful she is over the course of the film, and being pressed into showing those powers by maybe was tough situations. So I dig it. I dig it. I really do dig it. So I'm definitely hot on that one as well. Um, the next one that we'll talk about is actually is an anime. It actually is a video game, and it is Bandai Namco's Jump Force. So I'll tell you how I feel about that one. I really love the art design of the game, right? I love the way it looks, especially in steels. Now, I'll preface this by saying this is a pure preference thing, right? Purely preference. But the game is way too blasty for me, like
hmm
from what I've seen. Like this is one of my disconnects with like the Street Fighter versus whatever Capcom or SNK, that whole series, Marvel versus Capcom and all that.
hmm
My issue with those games is always to the point where there's so much explosion like graphics and things like that on the screen that to me it has always been distracting to the gameplay for me
Yeah,
personally. And I and that's to me what I look at when I see Jump Force. I see a lot of that same type of thing. So I do believe that people who love the different characters and stories and all of that. I mean, there's a ton of anime series that are going to be
yeah.
represented in Jump Force, a ton of them, right? One World Seeker is in there. Well,
Dragon Ball.
Laffy, yeah, Dragon Ball is in there. So it's a lot of them, right? So I think it's great in that sense, but the gameplay I think is going to probably be too blasty for me.
Yeah. I don't have a problem with blasty gameplay. I'm a Marvel vs. Capcom player. Particularly Marvel vs. Capcom 3 was the last game I was like solid in.
Mhm.
So that part doesn't bother me, and I love the idea of seeing all of these anime characters going up against each other. Even though I haven't watched all of those particular series, although Lifelong, Dragon Ball, seen a bunch of Naruto, seen some clips from One Piece and stuff like that. It's all very interesting. I do really, really wish Kill la Kill was in it because Kill la Kill is a phenomenal anime. That having been said, I'm hot on seeing it, cold on playing it because arena fighters are just, no offense to people who like those games, they've just never been real fighting games. They've always been super casual, something you play on the side for fun. And I don't see putting a whole lot into it. And I haven't heard a whole lot about what the single player is really going to be like. So I'm cold on playing it, but hot on checking it out. And like from a viewer standpoint, I'd love to see it and see what people do with it.
Yeah, kind of like the old Sega Dreamcast fighting game Power Stone,
Yeah.
which is when I think arena fighters, that's the first one that I think of. But yeah, so I
Yeah,
don't know.
Dragon Ball and Naruto have those kinds of games too.
Yeah, for
And
sure.
Kill la Kill has one coming out as well.
Okay, cool. All right, so our next thing on Hot and Cold is Metro Exodus. And so what do you know about that so far, and how do you kind of feel about that one?
Well, I know that it was going to be. Well, first of all, I know the first two games are supposed to be phenomenal. I have not
Mhm,
played them yet, but I will be picking them up on the Steam store. Which
mhm,
brings me to the next thing: is that it was initially released on the Steam store, and they moved it over to the Origin store. Now, this kind of game is a Steam sale game for me
mhm,
because it's a single player experience that I'll get around to.
mhm.
Even though I don't like the dominance of online games in today's market, the fact of the matter is when an online game comes out, you have to get it on release. Otherwise, you can miss out on a lot
Yeah.
in most cases. Some games are better to wait for, but for the most part, you should get in on ground level one. so that you can form a community and, experience all this stuff, even though they tend to be broken in the first month.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
This is a single player experience. I love single player experiences, but I only like single player first person shooter experiences. Single player first person shooters to me is, second, third tier of just terms of fun factor. So for that, so even if it's really, really, really good, I'll get to it eventually. But because they moved it to the Origin store, it's kind of like, now I got to deal with the Origin launcher. Like, I don't have a real reason aside from retro Mass Effect 3 playing to deal with this Origin launcher, and it doesn't have any of the Steam features. I don't feel like a whole new gaming economy.
Yeah.
And that's kind of a bummer. I don't hold anything against the developers for the comments that they've had. I think when you're coming from a different language, it's very, very easy to take that stuff out of context. For those who don't know, the developer basically said there's a bunch of people who don't really support this and they just kind of want to bitch at us and they were just going to pirate the game. And for those people, I don't care what they think, but for the fans of Metro, blah, 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 I don't care about any of that. It was just one developer. These tend to be big companies, and the decision to move from the Steam store to the Origin store wasn't the developer's decision. That was
Right.
higher up.
Yeah.
So when something comes down from higher up and it hurts the bottom line of something you've been pouring your heart into on 14-hour days for some odd years, if somebody says an emotional thing, I don't care.
Yeah.
Like I've seen it before. No problem. Apologize and you're done. So I'm warm on it because it looks cool. I don't care about post-apocalyptic stuff, too much. So it's like, but it looks cool. Just me.
Yeah. I would say I'm pretty warm on it because I love the fact that it's not an online game.
Yeah.
I love the fact because I think that the market is so saturated for first person shooter online titles. And it's refreshing to see a developer or studio bring out a game that says, and obviously their previous versions weren't online either. Just says, you know what, we're very confident in our single player offline experience that we're going to give you this, and we're not going to give a bunch of expansion packs. There's no battle royal version coming out. It's just this. And we feel good about it. So that intrigues me and makes me really, really be interested in playing the game. So that's how I see it.
Yeah, I'd be hot on it if it was a third-person RPG shooter. Which is just more my speed. So it's not about Metro; it's more about my taste.
Yeah, I actually like third person much better myself too. So yeah. So all right, so that's it for hot and cold, but it is not it for first person shooters. So we got to talk about Apex Legends.
Yes,
first of all, the way this game came out was insane.
Who do they think they are, Beyonce?
I'm trying to tell you, they dropped a mixtape.
Yeah, that's great.
A video game. They dropped a mixtape, and I was like, okay. And then what kills me is I think it was the first day, they had 8 million registered users. Like, are you serious? Like, really? Like, that's amazing. But you can tell that their analysts did a good job, saying, hey, you know what, we don't have to do this like this. We don't have to do this in a traditional way. Let's ping off of a humongous event in culture, and we're going to bet our bottom dollar that there's going to be tremendous crossover for this, for us to get the word out, and we're going to use the Super Bowl. And that is exactly what Apex Legends did. They dropped their information or their first reveal or their first look at the game around that word got out, and I don't hardly know anybody that hasn't played it yet. You know what I'm saying? And for me personally, playing it, I liked it better than the Anthem demo already. Now I will say this: the Anthem demo did get better. It definitely did get better, but I liked it better already. I thought they did a really good job of adding some personality into the whole battle royal concept.
Didn't we talk about that, dude? Like,
yeah.
not to cut you off, but that's an excellent point, man. We said, Anthem has a generic feel, and we talked about Titanfall.
Yeah.
What did they do? you talk about their analysts and them going back and reforging it, they added a lot more personality. And I know some people don't like the cartoony presentation of it,
No, I dig it.
but regardless, it still has more character. It
Mhm.
doesn't just look like you're playing with generic soldiers from Soldier Town.
Yeah.
These look like people who have
No.
jobs and roles in this world.
What did you say? What did you say your brother
Video the
said?
game.
Yeah, video the game. That's pretty funny. That's pretty funny. But I dig it, man. You know what I like the most about it?
What's that?
Here's something I never do. I never ever um I never ever like play a training before I actually get into the game.
Okay.
Never. I never do that, right? I never do that. But I did that for this particular game. And when I did that, um, I actually fell in love with with the gunfire.
Mm-hmm.
The I
As
mean,
Respawn Entertainment, they're some of the best in the game.
I
Some of the
mean,
best in the game.
dude, the shooting on this game is so dope. The design of the weapons themselves is so awesome that it's just like it's really that's what made me fall in love with it from the beginning. Like it immediately made me want to get each of those guns in my hand so I could actually try them out, you
Yeah.
know. And so
Which is a
I
big deal in a first-person shooter.
yes,
That's my thing with that I always bring up Destiny is even though Destiny has had some very, very flawed moments in their development, because the guns feel so good and it is a shooter and you're shooting all the time, it matters how good the guns feel. And that's my beef with Anthem is Anthem's not a shooter. It is an ability-based game. Ability controls the outcome of what you're doing, not just the shooting. The shooting is what you do in between your ability cooldowns. And so the fact that not Anthem, the fact that a, uh, Apex Legends,
Apex Legends, right?
the fact that Apex Legends has great shooting is a shooter, and I think they're actually filling the space of the battle royale thing in a good way because some people say, "Oh no, another battle royale." Battle royale is not my favorite form of gameplay. I'm more of a straight multiplayer guy, just like shooting people in the face and calling it a day. But the teamwork aspect of it and having the abilities in there is not something that everybody else has. And I think it's important to push that genre forward, not just copy it.
Yeah, I actually wish that that it did have at least a a single like a solos. I mean, like I like the team aspect, it's cool, but I wish that it did have solos because to me that would just make it all the more diverse and layered. And you know, because a lot of times we play, you know, you play Fortnite or whatever, and you play solos, and then some people long for the duos aspect. Like
Mm-hmm.
I really can't wait. Oh, I think it would be awesome if they added trios to Fortnite. I actually wrote up a whole way that they could do it and would create a whole different battle royale experience than is out there for anyone, right? But I would love to see solos added to the game. Now there is one part of Apex Legends that kind of trips me out. I don't know if this is something that they'll change moving forward, but right about now it's kind of strange, right? Um, I have never seen any game that allows you to crawl as fast during bleed out
uh,
as Apex Legends. I'm talking about, dude, you crawl so fast and you are able or eligible to be revived for so
right.
long.
And if you do die, you can be respawned at the station. So, but
Yes.
here's the thing about Apex Legends. Now, I don't disagree with you with the solos thing, although I will say for me, I don't care about solos for the Battle Royale.
Mhm,
What I would want is for them to put a team deathmatch in there. And it's similar to, a deathmatch, not team deathmatch, a single
mhm,
player deathmatch. It's similar to Overwatch, where Overwatch, the game is designed around synergy of abilities and team play. It
mhm.
doesn't play the same in a solo aspect. And for that reason, Blizzard was afraid to put deathmatch in the game because they're like, it's not going to be balanced in any kind of way. We can't do that. We can't balance Reinhardt versus Tracer. It's just not. They're too
Yeah.
different. In order to have character diversity, we have to give up the thing that makes deathmatch work. The way they made it work is deathmatch isn't about balance. It's about you pick the character that you're working on and you use them in team deathmatch and you get the results that you get. And that's that. So you can pick Widowmaker, who's a sniper, and go into deathmatch and snipe all day, knowing that if Tracer runs up on you, it's hard, but you'll get so much better at Widowmaker from playing deathmatch over and over that you're willing to take the cost. So I hope that they add deathmatch for that reason. I have a question for you though. A lot of people are complaining that this game replaces Titanfall 3.
Mm-hmm.
What's your take on that? And I have a take on it, but I wanted to get your opinion first.
Well, one of the things is EA had a disappointing third quarter of 2018 financially. They overestimated the success of Battlefield 5. And Battlefield 5 basically by its lofty standards flopped because it sold about 1 million copies fewer than what they expected and what they projected. So it caused actually for their shares to take a dip and stock prices to drop. So they struggled. They are leaning heavily on the success of Apex Legends and of Anthem to kind of pick them back up here in the first quarter and then in the second quarter of 2019. So I think that canceling Titanfall 3 is probably a smart thing for them, because what is really being blamed for Battlefield's failure or failure to reach the expectations is that they went hard on a campaign over a battle royal
Yeah,
because battle royal was hot. That's what everybody wants to
that's
play.
what they're saying. They're saying that they launched with single player instead of launching with battle royale, and they think that hurt the game.
They think that hurt the game. So, I mean, if you look at it, I mean, PUBG was a distant second from Fortnite, but it made $1 billion in revenue in 2018.
Yeah.
So clearly this is what we're talking about. It's the reason why Call of Duty made the decision not to go with a campaign and to flesh out
They did the
Blackout.
opposite. Yeah.
They did it the opposite. So it ended up working for them. And then now you got Apex Legends coming, which is probably a pivot from the Titanfall standpoint, because what probably happened was, I don't know this for a fact, but I wouldn't be shocked if it did. Titanfall 3 was originally planned, and it was going to look a lot like Apex Legends, going to play a lot like it, because it already does play a little bit like Apex Legends. But when they started to see what was happening, they pivoted and said, you know what? Let's just change everything. Let's go free to play.
That's what I've heard.
Yeah.
That it was something like that, similar to the way Overwatch came out of the failed Project Titan. This came out of a failed or a change of course with Titanfall 3. And you alluded to something that I think is important. You don't get to ask for Titanfall 3 when you didn't buy Titanfall 1 and 2.
Yeah.
Now, Titanfall 1 was released exclusively on the Xbox when nobody had an Xbox. That's an F on the developers' hands. But Titanfall 2, I don't know why people didn't buy it. I know why I didn't buy it.
I know why they didn't buy it. It came out at a horrible time.
Okay, now here's the thing, right?
Smothered. Yeah.
You say that. But they sold no copies of that game. They sold like 30 copies of that game. Right? They got about why. 2 basketball teams to buy that game.
I'm saying
here's the thing. You're saying that that's why, and I'm going to get to that point. Battlefield 5 was released in a bad window and had terrible press, both because of the controversial political, aspect of their first trailer and the way the developers responded to it. And it still sold 7 million copies. More than 7 million copies. And it was released in a historically great window. You're talking about Red Dead, Spider-Man, God of War, Call of Duty, rough, right?
Well, God of War was way earlier, but people were still buying it. Yeah.
To be right. So and NBA 2K should be mentioned, right? It's still around that time. It's still taking people's dollars up, and Destiny Forsaken. So you look at all of that, 7 million copies for a bad window compared to I don't know what the exact numbers for Titanfall 2 were, but they were dismal. So when the numbers are that bad, you don't lose out on 5, 10, 15 million copies if you were going to sell 5, 10, 15 million copies because of your window. You missing out because people don't, they're not into the franchise. This franchise never established a base. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
So if the franchise never establishes a base, it's not the window, it's the fact that they have to find an audience. And so how can you blame the developers for doing what they think, well, they need to do to find the audience? Now, you go a year from now, if they make a single player Titanfall, it'll probably do much better because of the 8 million some odd people playing what everybody admits is a very, very good battle royale game.
Yeah, I mean, was Titanfall sold 4 million copies. But here's the problem. It can't escape being compared to Battlefield 1, and Battlefield 1 sold 15 million copies. So yeah, that's that's not
Titanfall sold 4 million copies.
Titanfall 2 sold 4 million copies,
Mm-hmm.
which is for if we're talking about a humongous studio, like we're talking about a humongous publisher, 40 million copies is probably not good. I mean, put this into perspective, right? Now I understand one of them's free to play and one of them isn't. But Titanfall 2 had sold 4 million copies. Apex Legends had 8 million registered users in a day.
Yeah, that's crazy.
So
And keep in mind, those 4 million copies, I would love to know how much of those were at the launch window and how much of those came since the game's been for $6 for the past 2 years.
well, those numbers were as of January of 2017. So
when did it come out?
Late 2016, I believe.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, but it's largely viewed as not successful. So
No, because it had no audience.
yeah, the bad thing about it is it was a great game.
Everybody says it's a great game. That's the funny thing.
It was my favorite. It was my favorite shooter of that year.
Dude, all of the coverage says it's a great game.
Yeah.
I think its flaw, honestly, was that it lacked character, and they added character, so they agree with me because they didn't just make it a battle royale of Titanfall and take out the robots. It looks like a different property.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Which I think is a good thing for them.
Yeah, for sure. I'm really intrigued by it. I really dig it. And so I'm looking forward to continue playing it. I think one good test too was I let Junior play, and I usually don't let Junior. Junior is only really allowed to play games on Fridays, Saturdays, and Sundays, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so he needs to concentrate. But I let him play because
you're just trying to keep him from beating you up in UFC and Injustice. I see what you're doing.
Well, UFC, he needs plenty of practice to be. I'm kind of nasty in that, but yeah, I mean, I let him play because it just dropped, and the dude's is my friend too, on top of being my son. So sometimes we got to talk. So I let him play, and he didn't want to put it down, and that's I mean, he's a big time battle royale guy and a big time shooter fan.
Yeah.
He really gets super technical with the way weapons feel in games, and he's able to express why something's not what it should be very well, really good. So it was really cool just listening to his take as he played. So I thought that was pretty awesome.
Yeah,
so,
I know we're supposed to move on, but this is such a good topic. I can't resist asking you a question.
Sure.
How much do you think the release method of this affected people's opinion? Because we talked about Battlefield, right? Had this big, super toxic rollout.
Yes.
Right? And so online just bitched about this game for months on end before it came out. And so a lot of people boycotted it, right?
Yeah.
Whereas this game just came out and all of the opinions are just about the game. And I'm seeing a lot of streamers, like a lot of YouTube people, Destiny folks, Overwatch folks, even some sports folks jumping into this game, and they're just giving, like you said with Junior, their honest opinion. How do you feel about that?
Yeah, I think this was huge. And I think we're going to look back in history and we're going to look at the release of Apex Legends as something that changed the industry and changed the way games are being released. I think we're going to have a whole bunch more surprise releases, where games just literally seem to come out of nowhere, and I think it's a good thing. I think it definitely did piggyback off of the music industry. with the way Drake and other artists have just dropped our
Just dropped
albums.
albums like
Bam,
here it
here
is.
it
Yeah.
is. They dropped today. Boom. And especially you're able to do that if you're going to make it free to play,
Yep.
because nobody has any. You don't have to save up for it. You don't have to budget it in. You don't have to do anything. It's there right there. Go get it. So it really makes a lot of sense. And so I would love to see. I love to see somebody do that. Like, can you imagine? Can you imagine what it would be like if we're talking like about a sports game, right? What if somebody dropped a basketball game right at a moment when something was really going wrong with on the
Yeah,
on
if
in
like
2K.
patch 9 in 2K was a disaster,
And
and
yes,
during the All-Star game they just like, hey,
n-
for free,
for free,
hop
free to
into the park in our new
in
game,
our new man, that's scary for
endorsed
2K.
by Zion
Oh
Williamson.
my God,
It'd be
dude.
crazy. It'd be
It
crazy.
would be bananas, man. Or
Yeah.
or imagine something like this. Mayweather and Pacquiao. Mayweather agreed to their rematch, right? And right after the weigh-ins,
The boxing games just come out
boxing game, bam.
free. Jump
Oh,
online, create your fighter. It'd be
dude.
crazy.
I mean, right the day before WrestleMania,
Yeah.
All Elite Wrestling announces that they have a video game out. Bam.
I do think it's a great way to go. I want to congratulate Respawn on their success with this game so far. I hope it continues to do well. I hope they support it, keep coming out with modes. People get really into it and have a lot of fun with it. I don't believe in that EA made a mistake, boycott every studio they publish. EA is just too big. They're an entire economy. Some of the games are horrible. Some of the games are great. A lot of the games are in between. Support the games you love and the studios you love, because
Yeah,
there's
man.
a lot of hard working men and women
Yeah,
making
man.
those games. And I'll admit, as an artist, I have a soft spot for somebody who's doing the best that they can do at their job.
Yeah,
And
man.
some person 5 rungs up on the ladder makes a mistake, and we're all out of work. We're
Yeah,
all
man.
not on the project anymore. That sucks. That
Yeah, man.
sucks unbelievably. And I think gamers need to find a different way to
Yeah, man.
make their voices heard than to boycott, thousands of people
Yeah, I mean,
because of one person's bad tweet.
one of the favorite things that gamers love to say about the major companies is that so and so company X is lazy. That's one of the main things you hear. Like, you don't like something about a video game, company X is lazy. 2K
Yeah.
is too lazy for that. EA is just too
Hmm.
lazy for that. But they don't realize that when they make a statement like that, they're actually being lazy.
Yeah. Yeah. You're right.
Because you're throwing a blanket statement out over an entire company, and it's because you didn't get the one or two things that you thought you wanted. And I think, like you said, it's really, yeah, it sucks when people do that, but most of the time people do that are people who are ignorant to the process. They don't know it takes to what all goes into making a video game, what all goes into marketing a game. And some, like, they don't realize that there are some people someplace within the company going, oh my God, I wish marketing would stop saying that, because when this game comes out, people are going to feel like this, but they actually might feel like you feel, but they can't say it because they're a part of the company. So you got to think a lot of times that exists, and it just is what it is. But yeah, you're right. This was an excellent topic, but we are gonna shift. I mean, we're gonna do even a harder pivot than shifting off Titanfall. We're going to shift to UFC 234, which is maybe the least promoted pay-per-view I've seen in a while from UFC. It's headlined by the most nondescript UFC champion in the promotion, which is Robert Whitaker. Like,
Yeah.
I think you could ask a lot of people in the world who call themselves somewhat of MMA fans. You could ask them, who's the UFC middleweight champion? And a lot
Hmm.
of people will go, oh yeah, it's Robert Whitaker. You know, yeah, that's what. But I say that, but the arena's already sold out. Now, here's why the arena is probably sold out. And this guy has no problem telling you that he's the reason that it was sold out. Israel Adesanya says Robert Whitaker should thank me for selling out UFC
This kid
234.
is awesome.
He's
I
a
mean, let's just face,
yes,
he's
man.
awesome,
He's
right?
awesome. He's awesome, man. He's awesome. He is. I mean, I think that the like I really think that from a marketing standpoint, he's one of the brightest. I don't want to say young stars because he's like 31, but he's one of the brightest relative newcomers
Yeah.
to the UFC. I mean, I think he's had 3 fights now, 3 or 4 fights with the UFC. Standout career as a kickboxer. But it's more than just that. It's just his flair, it's his everything, his confidence. Like I remember the first time I saw him, I said, this dude has like he literally reminds me of a hybrid between Anderson Silva and John Jones. He reminds me
Mm-hmm.
of that,
Mm-hmm.
He doesn't have the wrestling that John Jones has, but the stand-up game
Yeah.
is yeah.
It's also he's got the build. He's got that, we talked about that Roy Jones Jr. factor,
Hmm.
the Bruce Lee factor of just understanding people's body movement in the ring. You can tell when a fighter isn't robotic or just athletic. Sometimes
Hmm.
it's not always a bad thing, but when you're really athletic, you can just sometimes respond to what people are doing because you just fast
Yeah.
or you just big, right? You can just take it and move in on them. But some guys have this magical element where you move your ankle and they could tell what your shoulder's about to do, and they see it as soon as you do it. And Israel, so they approach from different angles. They see the fight in a different way. And I think Israel is in that fascinating crop of fighters with Anderson and John Jones and those guys. I think he does fit that, and he admires those guys. He looks up to those guys. Um, so yeah, it's going to be really, really exciting to watch him fight. Although I'm not mad at the Whitaker fight either. I think Whitaker is a fun guy to watch fight, but I think he's ho hum for a reason for people, um, because
He doesn't really have much of a personality, that at least not one that he's willing to share on camera. So he's not a boring fighter. Robert Whitaker is almost never
awesome,
in a boring fight.
awesome fighter,
Almost
awesome
never
fighter.
in a and just almost never in a boring fight. Like
No,
even if
no,
he
that's
was,
that's what
yeah,
I mean by awesome fighter. Like he's
yeah,
active. His
yeah.
style is active. And here's the thing: he's a guy who's a lifelong martial artist,
Hmm.
right? He's not just some UFC guy that was lifting stones from this yard to that yard and
Hmm.
got into beating people up. No, he's a guy who from a young age has done this martial art and that martial art, and he fights like it. Like he fights sometimes like a boxer, sometimes he looks like a karate guy. Like he has a lot of tools. I mean, that war that he had with Yoel Romero
Yeah, both of them.
was
Hmm.
awesome, right?
Yeah.
They both had awesome moments. I mean, Yoel Romero whooped his ass in that fight.
Yo Romero deserved to win the second one for sure. I thought he got a
I
little,
thought
I
so too.
thought he got a little
And
snub.
so for me, that's my question is does some of the excitement come off the fact that at the top of the division, you'd almost rather see a third fight with him and Romero, or you feel that his road to this fight is not the traditional championship road of, I beat
Yeah,
everybody up until I beat the best guy and now I'm the best guy.
I think Robert Whitaker is one of the guys who, from a commercial standpoint, he needs a compelling dance partner.
Yeah.
And so I don't want to put all of this on Whitaker just because he's the champion. Kelvin Gastelum is about as bland, if not more bland, than Robert Whitaker.
Yeah.
And that's the other part of it. Gastelum actually has a personality. Gastelum, like I've met Gastelum, he's funny.
Hmm.
He's funny. He doesn't get a chance to, doesn't show it a lot. But like I saw him at the MMA awards, and he sang this. He sang like a parody of some song. I can't remember what it was, but it was hilarious, and it was poking fun at the weight problems that he used to have.
Yeah.
Because he was trying to fight at 170, and he just couldn't make it regularly. So that's why he ended up coming up to 185.
Hmm.
And Kevin Gastelum's a former Ultimate Fighter winner and just a skilled guy. But yeah, man, I think he's kind of to blame for it as well, because this is just a tough main event to because really honestly, the main event is really Adesanya Anderson Silva.
Yeah, but it feels like that, particularly because they're both such big names and
But
personalities.
that's what I'm saying.
Obviously, Anderson Silva is a lot older. Now, but let me ask you something. Because I don't want to disrespect the championship bout.
Hmm.
Even though it's easy with Israel on the card, right? Israel and
Hmm.
Anderson's on the card. It's easy to just talk about that all day. My question to you is, what do you think about the fight? Like, who do you think's going to win that fight? Do you think it'll be a close fight? Do you think it'll be a war?
We talking about the championship fight, or we talking about
Yeah,
the?
championship fight.
Yeah, I think it's going to be a war. I think it's going to be a war. If it's not a war, I think it's Robert Whitaker sparking him early and knocking Gastelum out. But I think it's probably going to be a war. I would not be shocked if Gastelum won, and here's the reason why. I don't like what I'm hearing from Robert Whitaker.
Okay.
I don't like what he's saying. I don't like, and this could prove to be irrelevant. But he said after 10 rounds with a monster like Yoel Romero, it is a relief not to be in the octagon with him. Now, perhaps he just gave off the wrong vibe with that, but it sounds a lot to me like somebody, especially coming out of two wars where he got hurt, and especially coming from the standpoint of somebody who has endured a lot of actual injuries. He had a really bad staph infection. He had some other injuries. He got hurt against Romero, somebody who doesn't even fight a lot, which is another thing that hurts his marketability because he doesn't fight a lot, right?
Hmm.
Coming from someone like that against an opponent like Gastelum, who's not this in-your-face guy and constantly motivating you with his words and his talk, sounds like it is the formula for underestimation and a formula for not being mentally plugged in. And at this level of this game, against these types of athletes and martial artists, that's not anywhere you want to be.
So your opinion is that he's not plugged in and he's
I,
gonna,
I'm not saying he's not.
but
I'm
you think he
saying
might not be.
it sounds like I'm seeing some
What if he
signs of that.
okay, and what if he is plugged in? Then what?
If he is plugged in, I still think it's a fight he could lose, but I'm more inclined. If we see the best Robert Whitaker, I think he beats Gasol.
Yeah,
But
and
my
that's where I am. If
yeah,
he's at his best, I honestly wouldn't be surprised if he won convincingly.
yeah,
Convincingly.
yeah. No, I mean,
That's and
yeah.
that's really what it comes down.
I,
If he's not his best, then of course you're right. But if he's
yeah.
at his best, I wouldn't be surprised. And I think that's part of why it's underwhelming because Gastelum is not charging into this fight
Hmm.
necessarily. The Bisping thing was short notice.
Yeah,
I
and
mean,
it was,
he
and Bisping had no business in there.
of
He had no.
course not. He looked
I mean,
like
that early and at that stage of his career, that
bad
was
fight.
yeah, that was terrible.
Bad fight.
That
Shouldn't
was
have took that
absolutely
fight.
terrible.
And then he's got a split decision after that. So, and the wars that he had with Yoel Romero, that looked like two top of the line middleweights, just like
It was
toe to
they were
toe.
great fights.
That's
They were great
sick. And
fights.
I think it's hard to see this fight meeting up to that fight. And also the way he knocked out Bisping, I would be surprised if he knocked out Whitaker like that because Whitaker has clearly displayed that he has a chin because Romero would have knocked out most humans
Yes.
at some point during that fight. So I think that's why people are cool on it. But I'm excited to see what Whitaker looks like outside of the Romero story. Um, I'm less excited for the Israel Adesanya fight from
Yes.
both sides
Yeah.
because, and I told you this before, I don't like seeing over the hill Anderson Silva. I wanted him to retire at 36 when he said he was going to retire.
Hmm.
I'm happy for him that he's enjoying fighting. Great, but I wish I didn't have to deal with him at the top of the division. I wish he was just doing show matchier stuff with other over the hill or up and coming dudes. I think Israel is too talented. Not saying that he can't lose. Anderson Silva is such a talented guy. It wouldn't surprise me if he somehow won. He has so many skills.
It would
I
shock
wouldn't be
me. It would
It,
shock me. I would fall out of
it's
every seat I could sit
it's
in.
just the fact that it's MMA and everything crazy has happened in MMA. So it's hard to be shocked in MMA when both people are talented. I expect Israel to win, but here's my problem. If Israel gets caught, even if it's a submission or something like that, he just gets caught. That sucks. Like
It does.
that sucks. You know what I mean? And I don't want Israel in a lose-lose situation. You win, you beat up an 85-year-old Anderson Silva. You lose. How'd you lose to Dawson from Street Fighter?
Oh, that is that. I mean, it's bad for the UFC if the Adesanya loses. It's bad for it's literally bad for the UFC if Adesanya loses. So
Yeah, yeah,
I,
yeah.
I mean, it's like that ain't good. You know what I mean? Because
And
this guy,
that's why it's like as much as I want to see Israel fight, it's hard to like
yeah, yeah.
I didn't
Like
want to
I
see Anderson
mean,
Silva fighting any of these fights.
now when you said that, you said this last week
Yeah,
about Damian Maya. I had a problem with it, but in this situation, I tend to agree. And the reason being is because Anderson's game is much more predicated on athleticism and
yeah.
explosion and that sort of thing.
Well, and you
And
seem to misinterpret that I was saying Maya was trash. I never said that. I never said he was bad. I just said I don't care.
right,
I don't care. I didn't say he was bad. I didn't say he was going to lose. In fact, you said
here's the
he was the
thing.
best submission guy in history. I said I'm not disputing that, but he's 40 years old, and it's different if I'm looking at the 31-year-old best submission guy in history versus a 41-year-old best submission guy in history. I don't care as much, and I also dispute you on BJ Penn. You talked about BJ Penn losing like he just lost the last 3 fights. That dude been losing since like 2006. So, well, whatever.
BJ
Moving on.
Penn should be sitting down in a recliner somewhere and never moving towards another cage ever again. I mean, come on, bro. He needs to just stop. It's just he should stop. So I definitely think he should stop. But Damian Maya, all I was saying was put some respect on his name.
All the respect on his name. I never
That's
took
all.
respect off his name. I just
That's
don't care. It's like Metro Exodus. We both said it's gonna be hot, but we both said meh. Damian Maya is the Metro Exodus of the
no,
UFC.
I didn't say meh to Metro Exodus. I
You
said
said you said warm.
warm.
Warm
Warm.
means meh.
No,
Literally what
you're
lukewarm
not
means.
warm. You're not warm
Look at
on
meh in
yeah,
the Urban Dictionary. You probably
no,
said lukewarm.
no, you are not meh or you are not lukewarm on Damian Maya. You were very frigid towards Damian Maya. Like I started hearing the Frozen theme song as you
No,
talked about
I'm
Damian
frigid in terms of my personal interest.
Maya.
What
Okay.
do I think of him as a fighter? Yeah, he's a good fighter. He's an older guy. He still fights great, and the style you said, the style that he fights in gives him a better chance going forward than if he was an Anderson Silva. But
Damian
I
Maya
still don't care.
Damian Maya could still beat any welterweight in the world.
He can,
He can.
sure, he
He can
can.
still because if you if you get down there with him,
Yeah, it's
there is
right. Yeah,
there is no guarantee you are standing back up. And so and as long as you got that, that's his equivalent of a puncher's chance in boxing.
I agree. I totally agree. Which is
So
why
put some respect on his name is all I'm saying. That's all I'm saying. But so look, we're gonna start something that we haven't done before, but we're gonna start this today, and we're gonna do predictions for. We're only gonna do the main card. Like I get crazy when I write up my previews for the UFC events. I do the entire card, prelims and everything, right? But we're only gonna do the main card. So we're gonna do predictions, right? And so we're gonna do predictions. I didn't tell Books this, so I'm about to spring something on. When we do predictions, this is what I think we should do. Picking the winner is one thing, but picking the method of victory and the round is two different things. So if for every fight you have a potential of getting 3 points as opposed to 1 point, then now you get even more credit for being exactly right when you do something, right? So say for instance, Jimmy Crute takes on Sam Alvey, And I say Jimmy Crute's going to knock out Sam Alvey, and he's going to knock him out in the first round. If Jimmy Crute knocks out Sam Alvey in the first round, I get 3 points. If Jimmy Crute knocks out Sam Alvey, but he does it in the second round, I only get 2 points. If Jimmy Crute just knocks out Sam Alvey, and or if he just beats Sam Alvey and he doesn't knock him out, then I only get 1 point. If Jimmy Crute loses, I get 0 points. Does that make sense? Are you in alignment with that concept?
Yep, let's go. Let's make these picks.
Let's start off with Jimmy Crute against smiling Sam Alvey. What say you? I'll let you go first.
Let me see. No, you act like I really care. Like I don't. It's a Street Fighter.
You don't care about Jimmy Crute?
Nah. Do I like the light heavyweight division? Let's face it. We only care about one guy who he fights. So,
No,
good luck, Jimmy Crute. He's super young.
That's not what that's not me. I didn't say that. He said that.
Right.
I care about more than John Jones.
I said, and who he fights, the people at the top of the division.
I care about more than that,
very
too.
interesting story about people getting to the top of the division.
I
Anyway,
care
let's
about more than that.
Let's say Jimmy Crute wins by decision.
Okay. Jimmy Crute by decision. All right. I got Jimmy Crute by first round. Well, no, let's say second round knockout. That's what I got.
Okay.
Yeah,
so
Jimmy
who you got for the next fight?
I got for the next. You can't rush me. Like
dude, this show can't be 14 hours long, man. Go and make your picks.
You gotta go. We gotta run. Like every time I look up, more problems. Hey, let me see who is next. Well, I'm being rushed. So, we have Montana De La Rosa against Nadia Kassem. Nadia Kassem is a beautiful young lady, so I just thought I'd let everybody know that in case you haven't seen it. But who? I'll go first. I'm gonna go with. I'm gonna go with Montana De La Rosa. Montana De La Rosa is her striking. I mean, her submission game, her ground game is really come a long way, or it's really the best part of her game. The thing about Nadia Kassem is she is a very a very skilled striker, but she's very young, pretty inexperienced, and from what I've seen traditionally over the years in mixed martial arts is that young, inexperienced strikers generally struggle against more experienced submission fighters. So I'm gonna go with Montana De La Rosa by first round submission.
Nadia Kassem TKO.
Challenge. Challenge. Okay. All right. Challenge. All right. Let's see who we got. It's better when it's always better when you disagree. So it's just everything's always better there. All right. Who do we got next? I think so blame UFC.com for actually bringing up what I'm saying slower than I like.
It's Ronnie Yaya versus Ricky Simon, right?
Yeah, Ronnie Yaya against Ricky Simone, actually, is how he likes it to be pronounced.
Well, he's wrong.
Ricky, you're wrong. Ricky, you're just flat wrong. What's so funny, Ronnie? You can go first. It's your turn.
No, go ahead. Say please. You already on a roll.
I'm on a roll. Okay, I'm on a roll. Ronnie Yaya is literally like the bantamweight version of Damian Maia, which is so hilarious because we just got through talking about Damian Maia. Ronnie Yaya is nasty on the ground. Ricky is good on the ground, but I don't know that he is on that same level, even though he is actually the favorite to win this particular fight. He's a -140 favorite. I'm gonna go with Ronnie Yaya, though. I'm gonna go with Yaya by a decision. I'm gonna say he's not gonna tap him out, but I'm gonna go with him by winning by decision.
I got Ricky decision.
Yeah, I think you just want to disagree with me. I think that's just what it is. But
That
it's okay.
might be a small part of my motivation. It might be. It might be at the heart of some of my decision making here. I cannot lie.
It might be. I think it is. I think it is. Now, Israel Adesanya against Anderson-Silva. I got Israel Adesanya by first round knockout.
Izzy second round knockout.
Yeah.
And that's the best I can hope for with Anderson. good luck on that second round knockout, old man.
Right. All right. So
I hope you make it to the second round.
the main event, Robert Whittaker against Kelvin Gastelum. I am gonna go with Robert Whittaker by second round TKO. Now, I did express there was some concern.
Yeah.
But
yeah, you talked a lot of yang for your boy Gastelum and wound up picking against him.
I'm just saying. I just like to throw it out.
Whittaker ain't ready, but he gonna finish the guy in the second round. That's what that amount to.
Y'all
Y'all see what all of his little decorations around his argument add up to.
No, I'm just saying you gotta keep it. You gotta keep all things in your decision there.
Yeah, I mean, these guys are both good punchers, good strikers. I wouldn't be surprised if Whittaker, after going 5 rounds over and over, is just able to be his best self for 3 rounds in a row and finishes Gastelum in the third
round. Got it. All right. Well, that's what we got. We'll see how it shakes out.
Even though I ain't gonna lie, I would love to just go with your pick and finish him in the second.
Yeah.
But I vow never to, not never. I will almost never agree on this segment unless John's fighting and we both like first round knockout. I ain't giving up. I ain't giving up the easy points if it comes to that. But otherwise, I'm gonna find some way to disagree with you.
No. Yeah, that's every time I look up. I'm telling you, this is what it is. This is
scared money don't make money.
Yeah. All right, so let's move into the final segment of At Me Bro, and it's you. You have something to say as usual. I mean, jeez, that's where it is.
People have been bugging me about this since it happened. Big trade we didn't get to cover when it went down, which was Kristaps Porzingis versus Dennis. You should have drafted me instead of Frank Ntilikina Smith Jr. And with other stuff thrown in. There's two sides to this argument. The Knicks won this far and above. Now they're going to get Kevin Durant and Kyrie Irving. And the Knicks are idiots. They just threw away the best thing they've done in the past 20 years. I think the truth falls a little more in the middle. I'll speak about this. First of all, the only thing I'm upset about is that I personally liked Kristaps Porzingis as a Knicks fan. I would have preferred a future where he was a part of our future because I liked his game. I like the way he approaches the game, and I hope to see him successful in Dallas. I'm still a fan. But one question people always asked me, I think you might have even asked me on the show, do you get nervous about Kristaps going forward because he's 7'3", and we just haven't seen a guy at that height with that build? And I always say yes, but he's here, and that worry doesn't mean anything. I just hope that it doesn't fall apart. There's a perspective that it already fell apart for Kristaps Porzingis, and that it's only going to get worse because he's played less and less and less games, and he's had a catastrophic injury already. And people might say his game's not predicated upon athleticism. That's not true. He's actually quite athletic at his height. That's why he's called the unicorn.
Yep.
I do believe he will make a full recovery in the short term, but it is also nice to not have to have my franchise future bet on answering the question, will he ever be good enough to make it through the second half of the season and the playoffs? That's a scary thing. And the word out, and this has been covered a little bit, but not enough. But the word is coming out more and more that the story comes out is that the Knicks wanted to get rid of him. That our new front office guys, bottom to top, they didn't like his medicals and were a little alarmed. And he was being a little moody because of being mistreated during the Phil Jackson era and watching Carmelo Anthony mistreated during the Phil Jackson era.
Mhm.
And being good friends with Carmelo Anthony while he was here, held a grudge. Understandable. Didn't show up for his exit meeting, and the organization didn't like that. That was unprofessional on his part, because when the boss calls you in for a meeting, you go to the meeting. That's just how it works everywhere. You don't get to say, I don't like the way you've been handling business, boss. I'm just going to Latvia or Spain. It's
Mhm.
not the way it works. But he's a young guy. I don't hold that against him. I like what the Knicks did. And if this is going to be called a rant, the only rant I would have is the people who are, you know, cheering at the Knicks' demise at this deal. You guys aren't going to get anybody in free agency. You just made a gigantic mistake. If we don't get anybody in free agency, Kristaps Porzingis doesn't change our future beyond adding 15 games of wins during the regular season, which is either a worse draft pick or meaningless eighth seed, so that we can watch Giannis dunk on us for, 4 or 5 games. So I don't care about that. My argument across all NBA stuff for a while is you have to do two things in today's league. You have to draft well, and you have to nurture that youth and use them wisely, whether it's keeping them like Golden State or moving them like Philly has had to do in some respects, even though some of that is not drafting well. What you can't do is what the Lakers are doing. And I've been giving them crap for this for years. The Lakers drafted poorly, and then every single one of their best draft picks, which at this point are pretty undebatably Kyle Kuzma, D'Angelo Russell, and Julius Randle, they have either gotten rid of or have put into trade talks because of all of the other bad draft picks that they've made and the way they haven't managed and nurtured that talent. The Knicks are out of that business because what's the Lakers' solution? Get rich quick schemes. I've
Mhm.
watched get rich quick schemes ruin the Knicks and Brooklyn for years now, and I'm tired of it. That's what I don't want. As long as they're not signing crappy contracts, I'm totally down for them to spend the next 3 years just watering Alonzo Trier, Kevin Knox, whoever we get from the draft this year, Mitchell Robinson, who I think doesn't get spoken about enough, and now we have Dennis Smith Jr., who, I'm not high on him overall, but I'll say this. The one thing that's changed for me since the draft day was I said, I understand, even though we don't know yet, Frank versus Dennis, in the sense of Frank is 6'5" at the time, now he's 6'6", giant wingspan, intelligent point guard. Okay, you think he's going to turn into this. And worst case scenario, he's a defensive role player. Whereas Dennis Smith Jr., worst case scenario, he tries to jump over somebody and his knee pops into the stands, and we never see him play again, right? So at the time, I'm like, I understand why they went low risk in this scenario, even though I also understand why people are saying you should have drafted Dennis Smith Jr. Now, I think both situations are still kind of like, we don't really know yet. Frank shows signs, has grown an inch, appears to be maturing, but his skills are developing slower than we'd like. His aggression is Lonzo Ball-ish, and we don't like that. Dennis Smith Jr., improving as a player, but not a playmaker. I love the fact that his knee has held up, and he's looked mostly very healthy in his time. So I'm not mad at the Dennis Smith acquisition, and I think we've added value to Moutier. So somebody would want to pick him up. I think he'd actually be great in Philadelphia right now.
Mhm.
So all that to say, I'm not mad at the trade. The bottom line is most of our most talented players are barely or not old enough to drink. And I'm not in a hurry to do what the Lakers did and get into a win now timeline where we Julius Randle, D'Angelo Russell ourselves, where we send an all-star out of town because we're panicking. That I
Yeah.
don't want.
Well, I don't think that D'Angelo Russell is a needle mover necessarily. So that's just one thing about him. Julius Randle isn't either, but he is one heck of a role player who would be great right now playing with LeBron if he was still there. So that is that. But I think the difference is the Lakers have gone into this mode because they got LeBron. You know, because outside of that, they were building with their youth. That's what they were trying to do. But they got LeBron. He wanted to come to LA, and so it changed everything. And I understand that. I understand that because we're the Lakers and we can do this. And we can jump. Every team can't follow the Lakers model. They can't.
But the
The
Knicks
Knicks,
can, and
the
that's why I
Knicks,
don't want
the
them to.
Knicks can, the Knicks can because they're the Knicks. It's just that the Knicks haven't got the guy yet. The Knicks haven't got the guy that changes your perspective about the way you want them to build. Um, if they got Durant, that would be the guy. He would be a guy that they could get that people will go, I know we were building for the future, but we got Durant right now.
Yeah,
Who
and
who else can we sign that would say the Knicks can win the championship in 2019-20? You know what
and
I'm
to be
saying?
fair, here's the thing about Durant and Kyrie Irving: they are both younger than LeBron James.
Yes,
Kyrie's a lot younger. Durant's enough younger.
enough younger.
Where Durant, 6 years from now, he could still be one of the best players in the league, particularly since he's a shooter and he's so tall.
No.
LeBron James in 6 years, if he's one of the best players in the league, it would be a historical anomaly.
Yeah,
And that's the difference.
yeah. So yeah. I mean, I totally get it. I understand. I mean, I just feel like um I don't hate the trade for either team, honestly. I think that Dallas has long been given great respect for their training and conditioning programs. Players love them for that. They take great care of their bigs, especially. And for if I'm Kristaps Porzingis coming off these injuries, that's something that I truly value. And if they're bringing something, a concept to me about extending my career and keeping me healthy and all of that, I'm loving that.
Hmm.
I also think it's great because you have a for them and for him because you have established a culture of uh, building talented European players into superstars. You
Yeah,
started with Dirk. Now Luca's on that same path, and now you get Porzingis to come in right there. So this is something that's they're not all from the same country,
yeah. And
but
even though
they're
he's not a superstar, JJ Barea, throw him in there too.
yeah,
They
JJ.
did very well with his talent.
Absolutely, did very well with his talent. So I think it can work for both sides. I don't. I think the Knicks did the right thing. Uh, if I'm the Knicks, I don't want to wait on Kristaps or hope Kristaps Porzingis doesn't get hurt either. I don't want to do that. To
Yeah.
me, we've been bad for too long for me to have to sell Kristaps Porzingis' health and sustained health to my fan base for 4 to 5 more years.
Yeah.
As someone who is a fan of a team whose superstar was hurt consistently for 3 to 4 years, that's kind of torture, to be honest,
Hmm.
because
Hmm.
you always are sitting here wondering and hoping and saying, "Oh, well, I hope that man," and you have all these if Kristaps is healthy conversations. You know what I'm saying? And that's just kind of sucks. It just kind of sucks. So I think it was a good thing for the Knicks to do. You can make the argument, did they get enough?
Well,
And
they got a lot of draft picks out of
got the
Dallas,
draft picks, right?
and
So
that is either going to be good players or it's going to be used in further deals. So
yes,
I actually really like the package that they got from Dallas because they basically got complete salary relief.
yeah,
Um, they got a good young point guard. He's our best point guard already, you
yeah,
know.
hmm
So that's an upgrade for us on the floor. He'll be here, so that's fine. And he gives us some flexibility in the draft too, because before we got him, I'll be honest with you, I wanted the Knicks to get Ja Morant so bad.
yeah,
Like that for me in my heart, it was John Morant or Ja. I'm almost saying
uh,
John,
yeah,
Ja Morant or a
hmm
bust for
hmm
me in my heart because he's so talented. But with Smith here, even if Ja Morant turns out to be a better player than Dennis Smith Jr., the key is Fizdale. If Fizdale can turn Moutier, who I was very low on, into an NBA caliber point guard, which he did, Moutier is not a bad basketball player anymore. He can probably turn Dennis Smith Jr. into an all-star. So if Fizdale can work his magic on Dennis Smith Jr., then we get flexibility in who we get, and there's a lot more hits than misses in the draft, and whether or not we even keep that draft pick, depending on who wants to come here in the offseason. And if worse comes to worse, and we just get that draft pick, everybody's like Zion, Zion, Zion. Zion be fine. He's a good player. I have questions about him being at that height of like earth shattering. But whoever we get out of the talented draft crew, if we have to spend 3 years just getting good with our young guys and signing some veterans to help them, learn the ropes and start winning, I'm fine with that. Totally fine with that because I think we've drafted pretty well.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, yeah. I don't know if John Morant's there, Dennis Smith or not. I might have to do that business.
Oh,
So
if we could get John Morant,
yeah,
I'm just saying now if we can't get him, if he
yeah,
like goes number one in a surprise and we get the second pick and we wind up with Zion, I'll be honest, before we got Dennis Smith Jr., I would have been heartbroken, but I would have been quiet about it because how crazy everybody is over Zion.
yeah.
Because I think that's possible. I think it's possible that like Phoenix gets the number one pick and they just get John Morant.
I think John Morant is going to go number one.
Yeah.
I think he's going to go and I don't think it has to be Phoenix.
No, it
I,
doesn't. It
I
doesn't.
don't think it has
If
to
you
be
guys
Phoenix.
got
I
the
mean,
first
it's
pick.
not. Yeah, they better. They better.
But I think them dummies are gonna get Zion, man. Not that it'd be bad. Zion
I
might
mean,
turn
it's
out to
not
be a
like
better
it's a
player.
bad thing,
No,
but
it's a
no.
deep draft. It's a deep draft. It's just what we would want, right? If
Yeah,
you see the ability to get a guy who's like a cross between De'Aaron Fox and Russell Westbrook, you want that guy.
I want that guy.
I don't care about the guy, but that's a cross between Kenneth Faried and Sean Marion.
Yeah,
You get put him on Phoenix.
yeah.
I want
I
I
like
want the
I
Westbrook
like
De'Aaron Fox guy.
I like Kenneth Fareed, Larry Johnson, but
Yeah,
yeah,
yeah, that's fine too. That's
I
fine
think
too.
that but Job to me is yeah, I think he changes some stuff.
Yeah, and to be
Yeah,
fair to Zion, Zion has a handle, good defensive player, great nose
good
for the game. I
footwork.
love his enthusiasm.
Yeah,
Yeah, his ability to get to the basket, to rebound, to finish. He does have a lot of Charles Barkley in him. He might be a great player. We've never seen anything like him before, so it's just really, really hard to say because he's such a weird player.
yeah, and you're just worried about injury and stuff
Yeah,
like that.
but
So
we've seen John Morant and R.J. Barrett before,
yeah,
and sign me up.
and we
And we
liked
like
what we saw.
we like it. We like it.
Right. So yeah, but yeah, man, it's interesting. It's definitely interesting. But that's gonna do it for us today. I appreciate everybody watching as always. Make sure that you keep an eye out for if whatever reason maybe you skipped around, you got to the end of the show. Remember, we always come back in segments throughout the week. So if you missed those, we'll be back with those. If you did not like the video yet, you forgot, you got so caught up in this awesome conversation, go ahead and do that now. If you didn't share the video yet and you want to do it, go ahead and do that now too. But for books and for my producer who had to dip out, my wife, I appreciate everybody watching. Like I said, God bless and peace.